What fan theory do you 100% accept as true? Evan Malone, if not actually a asterisk genius asterisk, is certainly asterisk much asterisk smarter than he lets on. Clearly he's lazy and gluttonous and blah blah blah. But after the merger with Stanford, and its reveal that Martin had served time, Kevin realizes that he needs to give plausible deniability to any sort of financial maleficence that the accountants have been doing, and flanderizes himself in front of the camera. Occasionally he slips up and reveals himself to be something a math genius, and has to backtrack and play it off as some kind of food-based idiot savant. It's how he was able to afford ownership of the bar at the end of the series. I'm sure he may have been just cashing in all those free drinks, but asterisk actually asterisk enough to buy a bar. I don't believe it. The reason each It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode starts with a date and time is because they are all testifying against each other in court. The Empire Strikes Back. Admiral Ozzel is a rebel spy. Everything Ozzel does in his brief bits of screen time is to the detriment of the Empire. When the probe droid finds the rebel shield generator, Ozzel tries to dismiss it as smugglers before Pyatt speaks out of turn and gets Vader involved. Later, Ozzel orders the fleet out of hyperspace too quickly, giving the rebels plenty of time to activate the aforementioned shield generator that Ozzel knew about. Clumsy, as he is stupid or rebel sympathizer who gave his life to give the Alliance as much time to evacuate their base as possible. I side on the latter. Eagle and Tulio may not be gods, but the armadillo that follows them around absolutely is. Beavis and Butthead have fetal alcohol syndrome. Had Loki was controlled by the Tesseract more than he let on. His eyes glowed multiple times, and he shed a tear when Thor tried to talk sense into him. In Disney's Ratatouille, the old lady in the beginning of the movie living in the house next to the river is the food critic Anton Ego's mother. In the flashback scene where he eats the ratatouille, you can see similarities of the house from the beginning, her face, and I think the bridge. The Jetsons and the Flintstones are living at the same time in a dystopian future where the haves live above the clouds and the have-nots are stuck on a wasted Earth. The signs include that Flintstones celebrate things like Christmas and other holidays, which doesn't make sense, and the Great Gazoo alien appears in both series. The town from Footloose is the same town from Tremors. The ban on dancing was a puritanical attempt to control the youth. The town elders were aware of the graboid threat and banned dancing out of the fear that it would cause rhythmic vibrations waking up the creatures sleeping below the town. Kevin Bacon's character in Footloose stayed in the town, growing up to be his character in Tremors, at which point he has to try and contain the danger he inadvertently released. Little late to the game, but the theory is that the Kyber crystal in Luke's green lightsaber is the same one from Qui-Gon Jinn's. After Kenobi defeats Darth Maul with his master's lightsaber, he would have kept it as a keepsake, despite rebuilding his own saber. It's likely he would have retrieved it and kept it with him after the Order 66 attack. After the Empire takes over, they destroy all artifacts and memory of the Jedi in their purge of changing the history, and most Kyber crystals go towards powering the Death Star. Because of this, any lightsaber crystal would have been very difficult for Luke to find after he loses the Skywalker saber. But we know he returns to Tatooine to complete his new lightsaber, likely returning to Ben Kenobi's home for components, where he would have found Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber and recycled its crystal. James Bond's primary purpose is to be a distraction to keep attention off the spies who actually spy. Villains and other spies know him. He rarely takes an alias. He makes his presence known early on and keeps messing up operations for the villains, but other spies have already infiltrated their ranks and work while Bond does as much visible damage as possible to keep the others safe. Red Alert 1's Allied victory results in the Red Alert 2/3 universe. Red Alert 1's Soviet victory leads to the Tiberium universe. And Hashix 200b, debunked by the writers themselves. Eric, but that's how it'll always be for me. He monsters encourage the cowardly dog are regular people, but seem monstrous from Courage's perspective since he's cowardly. Also, they live in the middle of nowhere because his owners never take him out, so that's how he views the world. Glinda dropped Dorothy's house on the Wicked Witch of the East, not the tornado, and uses her to gain control of Oz. One of the first things Glinda tells Dorothy is that she killed the witch. They praise her so she'll accept it, and when the Witch of the West comes along, who killed her sister, Dorothy. Glinda then puts the ruby slippers on Dorothy's feet, but does not tell her that she can use them to go home. Instead, she sends Dorothy to Oz in possession of objects that a witch would murder her for. Dorothy, being forced into a situation where her only salvation is Oz and her worst enemy is the Queen, inadvertently exposes the Wizard of Oz as a fraud and murders the Witch of the West. Now, who's left to rule Oz? Glinda fucking Witch of the North. She used Dorothy as an expendable pawn to gain control of Oz without having to leave her bubble. The real world in the Matrix movies is just another layer of the Matrix, designed specifically to appeal to people unwilling to conform to the normal matrix. Humans in this outer matrix have confirmation of their belief that something was wrong and get to indulge in the fantasy of being a heroic freedom fighter against the faceless evil machines, thus choosing to accept this false reality. The anomaly of the one is that he's capable of rejecting both realities, which is the reason why he had powers in the real world. Oakdex entries are written by young trainers. When a professor sends a bunch of 10-year-olds out into the world to document Pokémon, of course the research can't be expected to be professional in the least. This is how we end up with the creepy legends of ghost Pokémon that might have been passed around as playground rumors, or impossible facts like Mekargo being hotter than the actual sun. There's no reason why out of all the Pokémon professors, one of them couldn't have revised their Dex information and corrected tidbit about Pidgeot breaking the speed of light, or Gardevoir creating black holes, or Blazikens jumping over 30-story buildings. It's likely they leave the kids to their own devices without bothering to fact-check, and kids being kids are going to exaggerate. At the book Rory writes, in the Gilmore Girls revival is the original show that explains why the characters are so different from the show vs. revival miniseries. Event Horizon is a prequel to the Warhammer 40K universe. Have one of my own. Buffy's mother Joyce's brain aneurysm occurred indirectly because of Dawn. Not through magic or anything directly supernatural, but she was Dawn's mother, and therefore she would have the most artificially created memories, conception, pregnancy, life, thoughts, fears, etc. This caused so much real physical change to her brain overnight that it created real medical problems and killed her. This is never hinted at all in the show. Robb Stark died twice, first in his own body and second in Grey Winds. He had a chance to see Arya moments before his death. King of the Hill, Dale knew about Nancy and John Redcorn, but feigned ignorance, both to keep his home life stable and because he knew Joseph would be raised as his son rather than Redcorn's. Jessica Fletcher killed all those people and framed others for it. No way that a lady just happens to be involved in a murder every week. Willy Wonka knew what he was doing. There was no seat for Augustus aboard that boat. He knew Augustus Gloop would fall in there. Steve from Ed, Edd and Eddy is mentally stunted, which is why he's one of the dumber characters in the show despite appearing older than the other two. He's about as tall as Kevin and Rolf, who are some of the oldest kids in the cul-de-sac. Also that his parents are abusive to him because of his mental handicap, literally removing the stairs when he was grounded, and his sister's attitude towards him is learned behavior from their parents. This is further reinforced by him living in the basement, having non-existent hygiene habits, and retreating into obsession with TV and sci-fi comics. In fact, the other two Eds come from troubled homes as well, which is why they are social outcasts in the cul-de-sac. It's been heavily implied that Eddie's parents knew his older brother was physically abusive to him and let it happen. Meanwhile, Double D's parents spend zero time with him and won't even directly communicate with their son, choosing instead to leave him notes for chores instead. R. Bean is an alien. That would explain his weird behavior and why he falls out of the sky at the beginning of every episode. Very Star Wars planet is like a quarter the size of Earth. How else does each planet have just one biome? Ian Connery, John Patrick Mason in The Rock was actually 7, who was captured while conducting espionage in the USA after the events of the last Bond film with Connery. Diamonds are forever then imprisoned at Alcatraz. Mad Max films do not take place in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's just that's what happens when a bunch of Australians get lost in the desert. Ennis Reynolds is a serial killer. And the Red John suspect list came down to 7 names and Lorelei recited the names. Only McAllister had a prefix, sheriff, and not any other name. My own theory that in The Office when Andy proposes to Angela, the people playing his parents are different actors because they are literally actors. As in he hired them to pose as his perfect parents because his own parents couldn't be bothered to come. The people in the season 9 episode Garden Party are his real parents, who clearly are dicks. His is more of a personal fan theory than a common one, but the Titan in Titan A.E. was designed to be powered by consuming dredge like it does at the end of the movie. That's why they attacked Earth. And Max and Waterworld take place at the same time on different parts of the same post-apocalyptic planet. They are just unaware of each other's existences. Dora, the explorer, is visually impaired. Pan kills any lost boy that grows into adulthood. Cypher is still alive inside Stan Pine's mind after the ending of Gravity Falls. The clues leading to this conclusion from fans were so complex. They actually involved traveling to real locations and solving puzzles. Spoiler for American History X ahead. I don't know if this is a fan theory, but I always believed the boy that shot Danny was the younger brother of the guy Derek curb stomped and killed. The kid exacting revenge on his brother's killer by murdering the killer's brother speaks volumes. IMO. It also ties in beautifully with Danny's final speech about hate being baggage. So I always accepted that to be 100% true.